I'm going to try and cheer everyone up by telling you about the story of my grandmother's funeral. Yeah, I know. You wouldn't think so, but bear with me. My grandmother, who everybody called Mama, was a wonderful, wonderful woman, an amazing woman. And even at the ripe old age of 80 odd, she finally died at the age of 92. Her manner, her demeanor, her behavior was that of a naughty schoolgirl, not the matriarch that she was. And she was a formidable woman. I'll give you a quick example. I went over to visit the family in Canada at one point, and I traveled with my fiance, my then fiance. And why we didn't get married will soon become apparent. While we were there, one of my cousins sadly passed away, a young boy. He was 27, 28. And the news came from the hospital as a real shock. We were all in the house, my aunts, my cousins, and we were wandering around. My aunt swung into action, organizing events. And in the middle of this, my then girlfriend, we'll call her Dee, was sort of standing there looking shell-shocked. I was trying to comfort her while struggling with my own grief. And my grandmother sidled up to her at one point and murmured in her ear, "My dear, when you was coming over, did you pack a funeral frock?" And I looked across at my then fiance looking completely crestfallen and shocked, as if, no, I didn't. I should have. How remiss of me. And I just folded my arms and, "Mama, what did you say to her?" "Nothing. I just asked if she pack a funeral frock." And I was like, this was the woman. Anyway, she finally called it a day at the ripe old age of 92, and I flew home to Antigua for the funeral. And there was so much that happened around it. But I'll sort of cut to the bit where we're coming out of the church. 3 generations of men that this astonishing woman had raised, her sons, their sons, and in one case, one of their sons. And coming out of that church, the cathedral, we must have made a really striking sight. All of us at least 6 feet tall, some dressed in very stylish dark suits, some in African gowns, some sporting flowing dreadlocks. And as we made our way through the churchyard to where the hearse was waiting, a hapless tourist was coming along the road and saw this vision coming out, and he couldn't believe his eyes. My God, he thought, whipped out his video camera. Wait till the people back home get a load of this. The first thing I knew about what was going on was when my cousin Mansa, who's an Amazonian warrior of a woman, swept past us as we were carefully maneuvering the coffin towards the hearse, stormed across the road, and all this poor guy got was an eyeful of my cousin's eyes, red with rage in his face, telling him, apparently we learned afterwards, "You see that bleep coffin over there? You bleep, bleep, that's my bleep, bleep grandmother in there. And if you don't want to bleep, join her, because that's where you're going to end up. You better put that bleep camera away, bleep, 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 bleep." Which he did. I think anybody with any sense would have done the same. And this was kind of like a herald of things to come, a harbinger of what was to follow. Now, the funeral procession all got into the various cars and hearses, and off we set for a place called Valley Church, which was around maybe 40 minutes drive away out in the country. It was where Mama had grown up, and she spent many happy hours there as a child. And the nearby beach was where the Mothers Union used to have their picnics. The minister who'd presided over the service in the church had to go somewhere else before coming out to the church to preside over the graveside funeral service. And apparently he'd spoken to the driver of the hearse and slipped him some money and told him to take his time to allow him to do what he was doing. And the driver took the instruction and probably a tidy wad of cash as well, and proceeded to completely ignore him because he had another body in another coffin back at the funeral home waiting. So we took off, and people commented that the procession was kind of, the cortege was traveling a little faster than seemed usual, but all anybody could do was try and keep up. And we went zooming through the villages of All Saints and Erlins, and in no time at all, in record time, we'd arrived at Valley Church. The hearse deposited the coffin and the passengers. Everybody piled out to their churches. He spun around in a cloud of dust and was gone, while everybody commented that this was, a bit unseemly and a bit uncalled for. But anyway, there we were. Nobody knew about the minister not turning up, you see. Now, this is the middle of the afternoon in the Caribbean under hot sun. So we make our way up to the graveside, and everybody's standing around and everybody's looking around and saying, "Where's the minister? Where's the minister?" And gradually the story emerged. Now, people in the Caribbean are afraid of the sun. We're not like the tourists who come down and spend time out in it in the middle of the afternoon. So after about 15 minutes or so, people were fanning and complaining, "Boy, sun hot. Where's this minister?" And everybody is thinking, we're going to be stuck here for quite a while. And then somebody noticed that amongst the crowd was another priest, a lifelong friend of the deceased, who had traveled over from the neighboring island of St. Kitts for the funeral. And somebody had the bright idea to ask him whether he might think about officiating at the graveside, because after all, a priest is a priest is a priest, no? So he was asked, and he was honored and said he would. And we decided to get on with it, to get out of the sun as quickly as possible. He'd got to the bit, the dust to dust and ashes to ashes, so it was almost all over when the most unholy commotion broke out. Priest number one had arrived, quickly sussed what was going on, and was not impressed, none too pleased at the fact that this interloper was tramping all over his territory. And he lost no time making his feelings known, stomping up the hill, shouting at the top of his voice about people, this was minister number two, who should know better, trespassing on other people's territory, and other people, which was basically everybody else, who should also know better, encouraging this kind of, it was disgraceful. And he kept on going on about how disrespectful it was, completely oblivious to the irony of his own words. In the end, a couple of people had to gather around him, and after about 15 minutes of cajoling and smoothing his feathers and brushing off his cassock, he calmed down, and everybody had to agree that he would now take the graveside ceremony, which he proceeded to do, starting from word one and taking us through the entire service while we all stood around bawling under the heat, cursing him under our breath. I was particularly close to my grandmother, and at one point I was seething, and it was all I could do to stop from venting my anger at this pretentious pontiff. And at just the precise point, one of my aunts, to whom I'm particularly close, she's a very spiritual woman, she stepped up beside me and slipped her arm through mine and murmured in my ear. She said, "Junior," this is what they call me in the family. She said, "Junior, just imagine, Mama have two priests fighting over which of them has the right to bury her." Eh? What a woman. And the two of us stood there side by side, rocking backwards and forwards with suppressed laughter, thinking to ourselves that this amazing woman, this wonderful woman, this matriarch, she departed this life, but her spirit, that spirit of mischief, that playfulness, that cheeky smile, that naughty little girl was right there among us that afternoon. And as usual, she was up to nothing but pure mischief. Thank you.
Beautiful story.